So I think I'll start with Kyle. If you could please give us just an understanding, and anybody else who wants to jump in, but I really want to hear about the technology. Like, for example, what is there, what's not there, what might we not understand? And this could come down to things like Ethernet and other kinds of technologies, what laptops need or may not need. So please, let us know.
Yeah, so I think we're at an exciting point nationally. I think there's a lot of momentum around this, but to just kind of set the context about what prison is like in the current kind of era. One, if you're a well-run correctional system, it's not Shawshank, because that's a point of reference that a lot of people have, and it's not that. But there are a host of other challenges in terms of what it is. And one of the biggest things is kind of a lack of access to resources for the folks that are impacted by this. Yeah, let me see.
That one.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things I think that most correctional agencies deal with is kind of the lack of resources, particularly around technology. And I think there's a few reasons for that. One, correctional agencies have generally been skeptical of technology. We're not familiar with it oftentimes, and so our initial reaction is that it could pose a threat to our operations. And so because of that, we've spent the last 30 or 40 years just kind of assuming that maybe we can outweight technology. Like, maybe it'll go away. We won't ever have to adopt it. That hasn't worked. And I think Michigan and a number of other states recognize now that hasn't worked. And so, if you would have come into our facilities a few years ago, you would have seen that we're very focused on education. We do a lot of academic. We're actually the largest adult basic education provider in the state of Michigan, which is both a good thing and kind of a sad thing. But that's a role that we fulfill. We also have a lot of career technical education programs within our facilities. And increasingly, we have post-secondary with a number of post-secondary partners, colleges and universities that do face-to-face instruction. So if you would have come into our facilities a few years ago, you would have seen all of those things happening, but you wouldn't have seen students utilizing technology. The one exception would have been you might have seen them when they were sitting to test to take the GED, doing it on a computer. But what you would have also seen is a lot of our students struggling with that test because it was on a computer. Mm-hmm. And they not only had testing anxiety just generally, which a lot of us have testing anxiety, but they had technology anxiety as well. So they would have spent time in the classroom with their instructors, with their tutors, not touching technology, and then the day that the test comes up, it would have been, okay, sit down in front of this device, work a mouse, follow prompts, click on your answers. And we oftentimes would see people actually time out on their first test because they just weren't used to the platform. So that was a few years ago. What's exciting, and maybe a silver lining from COVID, quite honestly, is that COVID forced us to recognize we're not going to outweigh technology or outlast technology. We have got to make the investments as a state. So we started looking around and said, look, we need a true learning management platform so that we can take our educational programs into the modern era, so that they're more closely tied to either K-12 or post-secondary in terms of student experience. And we looked around and ended up working with our partners at Resultant, utilizing Google Classroom as our LMS, and have deployed that now at all 26 of our facilities. So we have a student network that's up in all of our facilities, so that was a huge first step. Now it is still prison. There are still challenges that we encounter that many of you probably don't. One of them was when we went to buy our devices, they said, well, all these devices are Wi-Fi enabled. And we said, well, we don't have Wi-Fi, so that's going to be a problem. So we had to have all of our Chromebooks custom built with Ethernet, and they are hardwired right now. But it gave us the opportunity to go back to our state legislature and say, look, we're investing in the network, we're investing in the hardware, now we need to invest in Wi-Fi. And so with the support of our state legislature, we're installing secure Wi-Fi into all of our facilities. That'll take a couple of years to actually get done, but we've started that process. So where we're at today is you can go to any one of our schools in our prisons, and while not every student is going to be on a device, you will see that there's devices in every single school that are being used by our students. The hope and where we're headed probably in the next 2 to 3 years is you could go into any building in one of our facilities and see a student on a Chromebook or a similar device doing educational stuff. Housing unit, in-cell, common areas, etc. So we're kind of expanding from a classroom to the whole facility. And that's really exciting to us. And it's key because, again, if you're running a good corrections agency, like I said, it's not Shawshank, but I'll tell you what corrections deals with and what people who are in the system deal with a lot: significant idleness. There is just nothing happening for long stretches that is engaging in a positive, productive way. And that is not good for anybody. And so the idea that we could have, kind of open the door to, 1,000+ multiplier of content for folks, self-help, educational, reentry planning, general interest, all that stuff. That is going to allow people to establish their own agency, their own autonomy, put them on a better track for release. So that's really what's exciting to us about this technology.
Beautiful, and we'll be hearing more about this. And Ben will talk a little bit later about some of the actual technology and how the technology works, which is awesome to have him with us. I want to turn now to Lucinda. As a woman who has navigated the transition from incarceration to empowerment.
Yeah.
Can you hear me any better? Hello?
No.
Oh, very good.
Now
Okay.
you can.
All right, we'll try this again. Lucinda, as a woman who has navigated the transition from incarceration to empowerment, your experience is invaluable and incredibly inspiring to us. And we want to hear, could you tell us a little bit about the journey a woman or all people, what someone might face as they re-enter society and how they reclaim their confidence and place in the world in a digital era?
It's on one note, I'm excited to hear about us finally getting to a point where internet and technology is not seen as a privilege, but when you're inside, and coming home, regardless of, like you said, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 1 year, 2 years, you're completely behind and you don't know how to catch up, which is honestly a setup for failure, because if you're not up to date with technology, you're not taking care of your health, you're not finding housing, you're probably back where you started and still no heads up. The first thing you're told when you come out is find a job or you're going back to jail. And I don't think that's something that is promising, especially, and I'll talk from a women's standpoint, and I do also work with men, but women is the purpose and the mission, is there's limited programming, and the programming that's offered is not something to show you how to learn Excel or Google platforms, or how to create a spreadsheet, or how to prepare yourself for administrative assistant jobs. And so what you're taught often is find something in construction, find a parenting class. Well, I didn't have children at the time, and I was too small to even get into any type of construction. And then horticulture, and I'm like, I'm from New York, we're not growing anything at that time, so how are we going to? And so if I grow something, I might end up back here. So it's sad, and it hurts, because there's so many people returning home without tools and access. And if you have access, it is seen as a privilege. You already have the stigma of being someone as a number and not your name, and you have to fight to reclaim your name. And the work that we do is to help them get into personal development. But the hard part is, well, Lucinda, how do we get a job? Thank you for the training. I only have access to it here, but when I go home, what else can I learn? How else can I dig in? How else can I get into self-development, or even attend college and finish my education? So it's a big gap, a huge gap between recidivism, reducing recidivism, having access and education, to now falling back into prison. Is a big system, and so is lack of resources is also a big system. And so how do we bridge that gap to set people up for success, these returning citizens up for success, without the stigma of you don't have enough education, you're not qualified for this particular job? And I agree, the training starts before you come home. The training starts once you get sentenced. And I think that is key. Without it, I've seen many people return back. I've seen many people fall into addictions, homelessness, domestic violence. It's just a downhill battle when you don't have access as to something that is a necessity. Internet, iPads, technology is just as much as we breathe today. And so we need to make sure that these individuals are just as powerful as the next person they sit next to. Let me not cry.
Thank you, Lucinda. Yeah. All right, so I'm not going to keep going right down the line. I'm going to keep us on our toes today, so, or maybe on our ears. I think I'll go next to Cameron, Could you tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing at Tech Goes Home and specifically in your community in Chattanooga?
Yeah, so Tech Goes Home is a train-the-trainer digital literacy model. So we want to empower the organizations, the community members, to be able to give the digital literacy training to the people that they serve, the people that they're close to. So we give them a training, and then they're certified to give our 15-hour digital literacy class. We have, with partnership, Chromebooks, we use Chromebooks for several different reasons. And we're working with groups, organizations that are working with those who are recently released from incarceration. We are statewide now, working with early childhood educators as well. And with the justice involved aspect, we're making sure that they have the digital literacy skills to, like the good sister said, you have to, all job applications now are mostly online. Our brothers and sisters don't know things like LinkedIn, resume building, using the spreadsheets and doc applications. So those things are pivotal to navigate in the world. And the digital literacy gap starts from however long you're being home. It could be 6 months, a year, 5, 10 years. And what often doesn't get talked about is the lack of access before even all of that happened. So you can often be double behind when you come home from incarceration. So we're being intentional of leaning on our partners, those who are already in the community, living the experience and doing the work.
Thank you. All right, Freddie, I'm a New Yorker. I want to hear about the first ever program, thanks to the STEM Alliance in Westchester. How did you guys do it, and what are you doing?
Well, first of all, a while back when I met Margaret Crawford, excuse me, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. She told me that the STEM Alliance was doing work with justice impacted individuals, and then she kind of spoke to me about, this possible project somewhere down the line where we can actually introduce a basic digital literacy course inside of an institution. Long story short, months later, we looked into it. She figured out that it has already been done. It had already been done in another state, and the connections were made, and the program was slowly but surely developed. It became a passion project for me because it's dealing with youth. It's inside of a youth detention center inside of New York State. So the curriculum and everything was based on kind of my experiences with working with that population. But it was based on them creating things like their personal brands or re-identifying themselves through using the Google Workspace and the Google apps. So, you would think that a population from this generation that is so savvy with social media would kind of eat this basic technology program alive. And these kids didn't even know how to open up a spreadsheet. They didn't know the basics of how to use a document. Some of them couldn't even make attachments to it either. So working with them and learning this, it kind of opened my eyes to, that this work is needed. So with that being said, I just want to say from a personal standpoint, I am also justice impacted formerly. When me and Margaret Crawford were having this discussion in December 2022, I had only been in society for 3 months after 19 years and 9 months inside of a correctional facility. She trusted me. She said, "Can you do the work?" I said, "Yes." "Can you teach digital skills?" And I had none. And I said, "Yes." So, the work, it's valuable. I know that for a fact. I learned the systems. I learned everything that you had to do on the outside. It was It was a struggle, but I persevered, and I think that that's reflecting inside the program, because now, if they can start from the inside with these basic skills, on the outside, navigating the digital world will be so much easier. So, that's part of the work.
I'm gonna just tell a real quick story. So, the work that we do largely is virtual, and I got a call recently from a college partner. We work a lot with community colleges and the workforce teams, and he said, we really want to do a coding program inside a facility in central New York. And I said, that's exciting, we'd love to work with you. Okay, so where do we start, right? Because there are great education programs happening inside institutions. I said, well, we need computers. And they said, well, we don't have that.